And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Could you imagine attempting to even broadcast or discuss the major issues that are facing us today within this hour? I mean, when I think about it, we would have to speak at the speed of light. We would have to get it translated somehow to get into our brains. But there's that much going on. Before we do start, I'm going to pick 2 or 3 items that just gnaw at me. And this is very selfish. It's my program. I pick it. But if our listeners decide that this is not the subject they want to discuss, they want to hear on something else, it is your option. This is your program. We would like for you to call 855-866-1170 and tell me. If you don't tell me, I will go solo. All right, but I do want to discuss issues that really concern you or confuse you. And then believe me, I'm confused most of the time, so you're not alone. Before we start, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. First of all, I'd like to thank also our sponsors. That's Ranch Acres Audiology, Jenks Health and Nutrition, McCool's Firearms, home of L&L Machine Guns, GoLibertyFoods.com, and the FreedomGoldGroup.com. I want to thank them very much because without them, this program would not be possible. And I know many of you are saying, hallelujah. Don't say that. Don't say that. I don't want to know that. I really don't want to know that. The one subject that I intended not to discuss, and I had to fight myself to convince myself not to discuss this, and yet I lost my own fight. Was the subject of immigration.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. This subject, it's all wrong. Now, let me say this about that. What we are hearing about the immigration debate is ill-placed, ill-thought of, and illogical, and contrary to the beliefs and the precepts of the Constitution. 100%. I know you find that difficult because most people say we have to secure our borders. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But before I came here, I was watching Glenn Beck. Boy, he makes this look easy. You ever notice that? He sits by the mic, and I sometimes I think as he's talking, I think he's asleep. He makes it so easy. He's good. He's good. He's a little bit too esoteric for me. Sometimes I have no idea what he's saying. What's the subject? I think he's too smart for me. He graduated in the smart class, and I was in the dummy class. And the smart kids can talk like that. And they can understand each other. Oh, yes, we understand that esoteric remark. And I go, what are you talking about, man? And I don't get it. But I love the guy, and he makes it look so easy. I tell you, I got to take a Glenn Beck lesson to calm down, slow down, and pause, and not make everything so urgent as he does. And I think he does a fabulous job of doing that. I wish I had his talent and his money. Not really. I mean, I really appreciate the guy and what he does for all of us. Immigration. I'd say about 5, maybe 7 years ago, I was listening to a talk show program on immigration. I decided to call in, and by the way, I never call in. I tell you, I'm a never call in guy. I think I've called in twice in my entire life. I'll be honest with you, and that's terrible because I encourage people to call in. That's how we learn. But this time I had it, and they were talking immigration and all the things we needed to do, and I called and I thanked the talk show host for the program. I complimented the guest that they had, and I said, I just have sort of a ethical, moral problem, if you will. And I said, it just gnaws at me. And to me, it seems to be the basis of what we're talking about. I like your comments on it. I said, when our forefathers came here and they landed on the shores of wherever they landed, the natives didn't come over and say, "Excuse me, may I have your identification, please? You'll have to be checked out, and and you have to sign in." And I said, "You see my point." I said, "We not only arrived here on our time, we arrived wherever the ship stopped, and it was always a different place depending on how the winds blew the sails. And when we arrived, we were not subjugated. We subjugated the people that were living here. And in many cases, we killed them. We did away with them. We took their land, broke promises that we made to them, and took everything that was dear to them, we took away from them. I said, from a moral point of view, how do we reconcile our actions, the Western European action, arriving here in the United States, and our current immigration policy? Think about it. I want everyone to think about it. You know what the answer was? They hung up. They did. They hung up. And I was nice. I wasn't yelling at them, hollering. They just hung up. I said, hello. I go back. They wouldn't take me. And here's my problem, is that if we are, I'm reading a book that I've read a book this week called Micro Secession. It's an excellent book by Jonathan Bartlett. I really recommend it to you. But in that book, he talks about we truly have our own freedom when we have freedom of thought and we think. And what we're not teaching in school are things like logic. And he mentioned theology. And theology is okay, provided you teach all theology. I mean, not just one, but open the doors open to everyone. In other words, those subjects that Socrates claimed to be important to the population, those are the things that are absent in our school. We don't teach the subjects that help develop our mind so that we can develop our thought process. And it's a process that we learn. And as a result, we are in tune to memorizing, right, wrong, get the answer, test over. Ask a question, it's either right, wrong, test, conversation over. And it's a real problem. That is the major problem in the United States today. We cannot conduct or have a conversation. It's sad. I mean, that's with my family. I'm not saying, believe me, my family's one of the worst. There's no conversation at all about anything other than what is on sale at Walmart. Drives me crazy. But let me tell you something about immigration. My point of immigration. You see my point. We came here, we took the land, and it's like the people from Oregon, Oregonians, or how do you pronounce it?
Oregonians.
Oregonians, all right? Oh. You move there, you get your lot of land, you get your house, and then you immediately go to the town hall meeting to restrict anybody else from coming in. We don't want any more of those people come. They do that all the time. People move there, and the first thing they do is, we don't want any more of these people coming in. Well, this is exactly what we've done here in the United States. So how could we be so sanctimonious about, we're Americans and, they have to do all this stuff and we need to close our borders down? It's immoral. First of all, it's contrary to a free state. It's socialism in its finest form. It's giving the state the power of tyranny, where you cannot move. Now, we say they can't move in, but we can't move out. Either way, they take control. We have given control of the state on our movements. Well, I'm going to walk through this now. Let me just start this way. For many years, back in the 1800s, for like 40 or 60 years, our border with Mexico was totally open. People came here, nothing there. They just walked over. The same as if, people from Oklahoma went to Kansas. You didn't show any papers. You didn't do anything. You just went to Kansas. But when you were in Kansas, you were subject to the laws of the state of Kansas, which is a which is
Reasonable
an entity in itself, right? And then the people from Kansas, when they came to Oklahoma, they were subject to the laws of Oklahoma. And no problems at all. I mean, you don't say, well, I can tell that guy from Kansas, better watch that guy. No. And people live in Kansas, work in Oklahoma. People live in Oklahoma, work in Kansas. No one thinks about it. What's the difference between Mexico and the United States? Now, to add insult to injury, back in 1858, in the the signing of the Guadalupe Hidalgo.
Guadalupe Hidalgo.
Thank you very much. I have someone here who knows.
Got the translator
Yeah, 1858.
here.
Yeah.
See,
Mexico conceded the southern part of the United States to Mexico, the northern part of Mexico to the United States. Actually, this is Mexican land that we took. And we did it because we're militarily stronger. When you look at all those factors, why are we so different? Why are we so hard on people coming in? All they want to do is work. Why do we need it? What purpose does it serve? Now, I've heard the argument, but they're going to take jobs. Now, let me see something. Here's a guy from Mexico, hardly speaks English or doesn't speak English, has practically no education whatsoever, comes here, knows nothing of this country, and you are competing against, this is the guy you're competing against for a job. If that is the person you're competing against, you've got a problem, and it's not immigration. Because you have a high school education at least, right? Maybe you have college education, and he's your competitor? I don't think so.
He outworks you. That's why he's your competitor.
Yeah, and the type of work, let's be honest, the type of work that they do is not the type of work we want to do.
I've done it before. There's lots of people, Joe, that could work hard, make a living, feel good about it, and then do something else.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right,
but the problem is we don't have people that will do the
That's
hard
right.
work anymore.
That's right. Absolutely.
And we're giving them a free lunch so they're not going to have to work. They're not the Mexicans aren't doing anything more than what our welfare recipients are doing. They're going for the money.
Yeah. And there is no harm at all. Oh, we got to take a break. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Remember to visit our website, LibertyTalkRadio.com. You'll find everything you ever wanted to know. And we have a caller. Maybe I can get that straight. Caller, you're on the air. Thank you for calling Liberty Talk Radio on 1170 KFAQ. Your first name, please, and where you're calling from.
Hey, I'm Bruce.
Bruce. Okay, Bruce, tomato juice. What's up?
Hey, I just want to tell you that I very respectively disagree with your comment stating that most Americans, or I shouldn't use the word most, but that Americans are not in competition with the illegal aliens that come into this country, because I can tell you what, they're taking away jobs from young people. They're taking away from jobs from a lot of these kids that are going to college during the summer. And I can also tell you they're taking away my job. I'm 57 years old, and I'll tell you right now, I'm a hard-working maintenance man. And I'll let you know that there's a lot of them doing the same kind of work that I'm doing.
Okay. Let me ask you, Bruce, let me ask you a question. What difference does it make if someone comes to your company and says, hey, I'll do the same job that Bruce does, but I'll do it I'll do it cheaper. What difference does it make where the person comes from?
What difference?
Yeah, what if the person came from the person who's taking your job away came from Kansas? What would your response be?
If he comes from Kansas, that's fine.
Why?
Because he's a U.S. citizen and he's paying taxes.
All right. Well, you see, if the person comes to, no matter where you are, if you come to the United States, you pay taxes in the United States. You see, they actually by them coming here, working here,
pay taxes here in the United States for the services that they use. Is false.
What services don't they? What taxes don't they pay in services they receive? Bruce, you there?
I think his cell
phone gave out.
Oh, his cell phone gave out.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, okay, sorry, Bruce, about that. Call back, but here, let me say something about this. People say they come here and they get on welfare and this. If you have a problem with welfare, you have a problem with welfare. It has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with immigration. You see the point? This elderly gentleman one time came and he railed about how they come here and they go on welfare. I said, then you have a problem with the welfare program. You don't have a problem with immigration. And he became irate. Couldn't calm the guy down. He thought he was going to have a heart attack. You have to understand what the problem is. Now, people don't come here. If, in fact, people come here, there's a certain number of people come here. It's not that it's blocked 100%. Who's making the decision how many come in? How is that decision made? It's made by a bureaucrat. Can a bureaucrat decide in Washington, decide how many people are going to be needed in a free enterprise state? No, they can't do that. They screw it up every time. They either have too many or usually too few. Now, let me say something about people coming in from another country and competing against Americans for jobs. You know, that's free enterprise. What difference does it make if the person comes from Mexico, Russia, China, South Korea, Brazil? If they do your job better and less expensively, you're going to lose your job. It makes no difference. It forces you to be the best that you can do and provide the best services you can. The United States has a problem right now. Our wages are relatively high compared to the rest of the world. Anyone who comes here, anyone from India, China, no matter where they come from, will work for lesser wages. And then we say, look, they're working fine. Look what has happened. We're putting people out of work. Well, you don't have a problem so much with the worker, is that we have a problem with the government in deciding how much people should make. When government is paying people 60% more for just pushing paper than the free market, what that does is it puts pressure on raising salaries. Oh, yeah, everyone's getting richer. But let me ask you a question. With all the money that we make today, are we richer or are we poorer today than we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago? You see, we're not really any richer. The thing is, we've inflated the money. In other words, the government has interfered with the free marketplace to a point where we think we're making more money and we are not. But relative to other countries, we're making a hell of a lot more money. So when they come here and they work for less, what they're doing is they're equalizing it for us. I know that hurts, but that's the truth.
Minimum wage does that too.
Minimum wage. I have a company. I would hire people on a trial basis if it wasn't for minimum wage. Not that I want to do for nothing, but I have to train them for weeks. But if I have to pay them about, with salary burden, $10 an hour to train them for 3 weeks, and then they say, I don't want to work here, they'll put me out of business. So I hire no one. It prevents me from hiring. And the number of people that are losing their jobs because a person from Mexico is coming in has got to be absolutely minuscule. I mean, you can't have a policy based on a few people thinking that they're losing their job because someone else is doing it. When I go to factories, I used to go to factories all the time. Some factories were nearly 100% Mexican or Latino or what do you want to call it, south of the border. 90%. Why? Because they work really hard. They work very, very, very hard. And the conditions, I tell you, they suck. I wouldn't work there. We had to do work for the companies, but I would not work there. And those people that I knew who worked in factories hated their jobs, hated them tremendously. White people. Mm-hmm. Americans, I should say, not white people, but Americans. They hated their jobs. They said, it's a horrible job. It's a horrible. Well, get out.
Get an opportunity.
Get out. Do something.
Get a training.
No, they don't do anything. And let me tell you, this is how it starts. They're in high school. They learn nothing. They learn no skills in high school. High school graduates are worthless when they come out. They can do nothing, right? And of course, they didn't do well in school. They just graduate. We just graduate people, right? And then their friend Bobby gets a job in the refinery, and he finds out that Bobby makes $14 an hour. Well, geez, I can make $14 an hour. Wow, I can buy that pickup truck. So now Mikey gets the job with his friend at the refinery. He makes $4,000. He buys his pickup truck. It's the lousiest job in the world. It's hot, sweat labor. And then they complain, that they hate their job. And then when someone comes in, we'll do the job for them cheaper and faster and better, without complaining. They complain they're going to lose their job. You can't have it both ways. This is not going to work. You can't have it both ways.
But when did it become a disgrace to work hard anyway?
Yeah.
A lot of Americans won't take jobs that, like picking beans or picking, they won't do those jobs. But you know what? If there wasn't a free ride and everybody wasn't on, millions of people weren't on welfare, and they didn't get a handout for nothing, they'd be hungry. They would do a job, and you know what? They'd work themselves up from picking it to finally managing pickers to maybe even becoming a farmer or what, and they would move up if they really had it in them to work.
Absolutely. My father came here not speaking the language, had no money at all, and started his own company.
That's how it works.
I mean, he worked day and night. Day and night he worked day. Couldn't even talk language. But let me have you. We say secure our border. Do you know how ridiculous that? You know how long the border is? Do you know how long the border is? How big the border is? 1,951 miles. Actually, it's a little bit more than that. Some round it up to 1,952 miles.
How many drones do we have that we got to spend money on to run up and down that border?
That equates to 3,141 kilometers. And from Los Angeles, if you drive from Los Angeles to New York, it's 2,790 miles. Right? I just want to put that in perspective. 1,900 to 2,800 miles. Okay,
they want to put a wall all the way through there.
They're going to put a wall all the way. The cost of doing that is in the mega billions, and if you do so, the problems are monumental. Here are just a few of them. You have typographic type of problems. You have people who own property on both sides, and they don't want to sell. They don't want to divide the property. You have ecological problems, and
flows of rivers.
Yeah. You have interruption of lifestyle. And have you looked at the wall and how ugly it is? It takes a beautiful scenic place.
I thought we tore one down in Europe.
And guess what the wall looks like? The Berlin Wall.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, there's a part of it that's called the Berlin Wall. And yet we're saying, yes, we have to secure our borders. Well, it would cost mega billions to build. We only have a small portion of it built. We cannot secure it even that way. Now, let's assume we built this wall of 2,000-mile wall. Who's going to patrol 2,000 miles of wall? It can't happen. They will find a way. They'll go by sea. They'll go into California some other way.
Small aircrafts.
Yeah, small aircraft. They're doing this now with submarines. They literally build their own submarines. In other words, you can build a wall, but it won't stop them. Now, it'll slow them down. They'll find ways. But they will bankrupt us in the process. And then what do we say? And then the argument is, well, we got to stop them drugs. Well, you don't have a problem with immigration. You have a problem with U.S.'s drug policy. If we made drugs legal, we wouldn't have this problem.
Joe, I have a wall they should build, though. It's around Washington. I keep those nutcases in there because that's where our big problem is.
Let's do that. That's
who's screwing up the jobs.
Yeah.
That's who's screwing up all the whole economy, trying to make an economy rather than let the free market system just develop.
Absolutely.
Jeez.
What about the very precepts of our religion and everything we learned at kindergarten? Be good to others, help others, all this other stuff, all religion. We go to church on Sunday, and then when it comes to applying the very precepts that we learn in church, we throw them away in the interest of national security or whatever. It is insane. It is absolutely insane. If we had no border, there would be absolutely no problem. We're going to have a drug problem, but those drugs are going to come through anyway. They're going to fly them through missiles that somehow get
them in. They dig these big. I'm just like you, Joe. Dig these big caves and tunnels across. It's amazing. They say there's a whole network of tunnels through there.
Yeah, and then we are trying to reduce the debt, because we are drowning in debt, and we're going to go bankrupt. Let's take a break for a while. Let's start this segment with a caller. We have Dennis on the line from Tulsa. Dennis, thank you for calling Liberty Talk Radio on 1170 KFAQ. What's on your mind?
I like that you say your name more often now.
Oh, that's good. I got to practice that a little bit, huh? Yeah, maybe I should talk like I used to talk in Harlem. Hey, this is Joey Popcorn. What do you want? You know.
I like to hear that accent like that. I'm from Washington Heights.
Oh, Washington Heights.
Okay, good.
You know where Washington Heights is?
Sure.
I'm from Washington Heights.
All right. Hey, you're upscale, you know.
Yeah, I don't know how my dad got that condiment up there, but we did, and it's kind of an interesting portion of New York, right across from Bennett Park, one of the most famous Revolutionary War sites that no one talks about.
I did not know that, as Johnny Carson would say.
People should go there. Hey, I was listening to you before I ran in the store, and you talked about illegal, undocumented workers taking the jobs of people that are here. And Joe, from New York, and even in Tulsa, there's an enormous economy that's off of the FICA grid. There's all the time growing up, I always worked jobs that were off the books, especially in New York. And I made a lot of money. And I was just one of millions of people doing that.
Yeah.
Nowadays, in Tulsa, you know, I personally, I don't work off the books, but I know personally a lot of people that work off the books. There's an enormous economy where money just changes hands.
Right.
Now, one of the problems that I have noticed over the years of watching the news is I hear about these families that come over the border to try to get ahead from Mexico, and they'll stack about 10 or 12 people in a house, and they'll get robbed. They'll get robbed because they're a target. They can't go open a bank account. They got to stay off they got to work on the cash system, and they can't call the cops unless someone gets shot, and
Good
they
point.
have to call the cops.
Right.
And they're a target. They really because they have to keep their money in the house.
That's right.
And that's a dangerous thing to do because the bad guys know this, and they hunt them. And so I feel sorry for those people. There's a better way. There's a better way, and there's a legal way, and there's a better solution.
Yeah, the whole system is inhumane, and it's unthinkable if you think from a free market freedom. You know, we talk about freedom, USA, freedom. But when it comes down to brass tacks, all of a sudden we get very, very selfish. We want our politicians to enact laws that benefit me, just not you, me, and then I'm going to fight for it. And this is a real problem. This country was back in the 1800s. Immigrants came here by the boatload, literally by the boatload. They just got off and they signed. Of course, they signed papers as to who they were and where they were from, and some history and whatever. And they were documented, if you will. But they just came. There was no one said scouted. Well, I'm sorry, we just got 430. You're 431. You have to go back to Lithuania. We didn't do that. We took everybody in.
Well, they did. You're from the city. The Ellis Island, you had, if you came into the harbor, you could jump ship and swim to shore. But most people went through Ellis Island. They got their checkup by the dock.
Right.
If these people, that's another thing. You have bubonic plague turning up in Colorado, in New Mexico now. Tuberculosis. My running partner got tuberculosis, seeing patients in the ER. That doesn't exist, in America. This is coming over the border because people are getting inoculated in America, and so there is a problem with disease coming over the border.
Absolutely, right. Yeah, when you restrict something, everyone tries a way to get around it, and the bad guys are the ones that are going to do that, and those that are,
How about this is what I called Senator Cruz's office and talked to him for 30 minutes. I love the idea of getting rid of the IRS. This is not a new idea. It's an old idea, but no one's really had a solution. I like the idea of abolishing the IRS as we know it, and I would allow you, when you work your wage, to get rid of FICA. Okay, so you get your wage, and now you just got an increase. I just gave you a pay increase of your own money of 22.45% in your wage. Well, what do you and I do when we get 22.45% more money in our check? We spend it.
Right.
We go to the economy and we buy our kids food. We go on vacation, Now, what about at the point of purchase, you hit everybody with a flat tax?
Well, is that a fair tax, Dennis?
I would say make it fair. I would say that Jeff Immelt has to pay the same tax that you
Right.
do.
Right. No, I agree.
Say hit Jeff Immelt and hit him for 9.99% today, and then each year titrate off of that.
Right.
Give me 1% every year. Give me 9.99 one year, 8.99, 7.99, and let's work it. Let's restrain government. Let's
Right.
tame it. Let's get it back in the box.
There's a book on the fair tax that talks just about that. And, you know, we really obviously the income tax really screws things up because not everyone's paying it and it's too easy to get out of it and to avoid it and whatever.
You know, the NHL does not pay a federal income tax. The NBA does not pay federal. The LPGA and the NFL do not pay any federal tax.
Yeah, manipulating the government to make laws. Yeah.
Training government.
Yeah.
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 That's
See,
wrong.
we're pounding on the poor people who come over here from Mexico that want to work. You know,
And
that want to work. I mean, they really want to work, and that's all. They're not coming up here. They're not coming here for welfare. They're leaving their families. You know, it's a tough thing to leave. Tough thing to leave your family, and they're very family oriented. They're not coming over here. So I'm going to go there and just
pillage the country or something.
Go there and go on welfare.
have-
They're not doing that. Come on.
Hey, I love these people. But you cannot enable people.
Right.
You have to make a system that's fair and safe. How many horrific stories do we have to hear about what happens to people when these coyotes are abusing the women when they're coming across the border?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's absolutely horrible. People are getting killed.
Yeah. And how do we determine, by the way, how many people from Mexico can come in? How is that determined? No one even knows that.
Yeah, I don't get that part. I haven't even tackled that yet. But I have no problem with securing the border and doing it the right way. You can do it the right way. I mean, you know, I gave a solution where you just where you just use drones to patrol the border. You don't need a fence. I've done the math on the fence. It's billions and billions of dollars, and guess what? No fence has ever kept anybody in or out of anywhere in the history of the earth. It's never worked.
Right. The Great Wall of China.
The Great Wall of China. Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting? When I was in Europe, there's a street there's many streets this way. If you're in France, for example, and you'll see a concrete post, and it'll have it's just a post. It's just a little post. It's about 5 feet tall, and it says on one side it has an S, on the other side it says F, has the letter F, and that means Switzerland and France. I mean, there's nothing else. There's no. I mean, other than that, you see it's in the middle of the street, and that's it. And people walking back and forth. There's no immigration papers. And people walking in and out, and people in France are working in Switzerland, people in Switzerland working in France. And we had this we're paranoid about people coming here. It should be open borders, and we had no trouble when we had open borders, not at all. And we didn't talk.
I would say you sound like a seasoned man. And let's go back in time just a little bit. Let's go back to just after World War II. And for our own safety, for nuclear proliferation, I mean, someone could come across the border and make a big mess. I'm not saying they could get a nuke off,
absolutely,
but they could put strontium-90 in the water and make a huge mess, and make something inhabitable. I remember there was an interim committee that worked with President Truman, and the Congress after the war, they said, now that the genie is out of the bottle, now that there's nuclear isotopes and nuclear weapons, how do we keep this stuff from hurting us? And they put Robert Oppenheimer on the stand, and he said, solution simple. You just need a screwdriver. And they were perplexed. They were like, well, how are you to stop a nuclear bomb with a screwdriver? And he said, well, you're going to have to open every single crate and every single can that comes in any dock anywhere in the United States.
Touché. Okay. Yeah, I got to ask you, Dennis, are you a runner?
I am, as a matter of fact.
Oh, yeah. What do you specialize in? How many kilometers?
Oh, those days are over for me. I just do it for fun now.
Yeah. What did you specialize in?
Oh, I was addicted to running. So
me too.
I was running every day at lunch, like around 4 to 9 miles.
Yeah.
And during the Tulsa run, we'd get up to 12.
I did the first Tulsa run in 1978. It was a 10,000-meter man myself.
Yeah, sure.
We got to run. Everyone's hollering at me right now. Hey, thanks a million for calling in. Enjoy your comments.
God bless you guys.
All right, take care now. Bye-bye. Didn't have time. Okay. You know what? How much time do we have right now?
Well, you can take a little bit more time if you like.
I want to make a comment. James Clapper, who is the director of the National Security Administration, when he was interviewed after a hearing in front of the Senate hearing, they asked him about his responses, and he says, "At least I was the least untruthful that I could be. I was the least untruthful." Now, talking about Washington speak, when people start talking like that and the press accepts it, we have a hell of a problem with the press not being the watchdogs of the citizen, but being the protectors of the state.
So they lied to us and expected everybody to go along with it.
I was the least untrue. Can you make me tell? You know, my wife asked me, "Do I have any girlfriends?" "Oh no, honey, but at least I was the least untruthful." I mean, what other answer is there? You know, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and yet people did. You think that the president of the United States, who's in charge, I mean, he's the guy who elects these people, or at least is influential in electing these people, would say, "This guy is an embarrassment to our nation. You know, he's fired." No one says a word. Could you imagine owning a company and being on TV, CNBC News talking about, and says, "Well, yeah, on our annual report, I was the least untruthful." Guy would lose his job immediately. He would be out. And they'd throw him out. Okay, let's take a break.
Now, you kids are probably saying to yourselves, "Hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get the world by the tail and wrap it around and pull it down and put it in my pocket." Well, I'm here to tell you that you're probably going to find out as you go out there that you're not going to amount to jack squat. You're going to end up eating a steady diet of government cheese and living in a van down by the river.
And that's got to be a song, "A Van by the River," isn't it? You know, for half a century, you know, we've had totally open borders and nothing, absolutely nothing happened other than we brought in very, very productive people. And the argument that, well, you know, look at all the bad guys that come in. Well, the bad guys are not only going to come in, but if you build a wall, you're going to keep them in. You see, the wall works both ways. There are people right now in the United States that want to return to Mexico. They want to return to their families, but they cannot because the wall prevents them from doing so. You know, we have to understand that the freedom of movement is a basic human right. This is what the United States represent, is freedom. In our Constitution, when they mention freedom, they don't say freedom of the citizen. They say the freedom of man, the freedom of all people. They don't say the freedom of the citizen or the people who sign some paper. It's freedom, total freedom, and there's nothing to be afraid of freedom. Once you're afraid of freedom, the only reason why people are afraid of freedom is because they think they're going to lose something. And when they feel they're going to lose something, then they go to the state. They grovel to the state and say, "Enact some laws to protect, because I don't want to lose my job. I don't want," whatever the situation is. And then they empower the state. Now, what the state loves this.
Yeah, they set it up.
You know, these laws delight bureaucrats. They delight lawyers. They delight lobbyists. Now, tell me, will someone please call in and tell me, well, oh, yeah, those are the group. That's the group that I align myself with. Lawyers, bureaucrats, and lobbyists, they're the people that should be running America. Well, folks, because of things like immigration, lawyers, bureaucrats, and lobbyists are the ones running America. You see, if we had open borders and this was not an issue, you would be taking the power, stripping the power away from the bureaucrats, the lawyers, and the lobbyists. They don't want that to happen. So every week you hear, well, so-and-so is getting on immigration controls and immigration this and immigration that. They can't do it. There is no, they're going to be a compromise. There's going to be a compromise on immigration and the Republicans this and the Democrats. What garbage. And we listen to the swill. Why we do that is beyond my comprehension. It is all garbage. Can someone say, we are free? All of us are free.
Joe, I wasn't thinking of immigration last week, and all of a sudden it's the top of news story.
Yeah, and then that'll go away for a while.
Yeah.
They'll pass some laws you won't even hear about it, make things worse, right? They'll appropriate another $500 billion to build some more of the wall, which will be an absolute travesty, And then we want to know, geez, we got to cut down government spending, but not the wall because I got to protect my job. We can't play that game, folks.
Good.
Either you believe in freedom. Either you believe in freedom or you don't. It's like, you know what? Saying that you're American, you believe in French rights and freedom, USA, and believing in immigration controls is like being half pregnant. Ain't going to happen. Let's take a caller. Let's see. Lloyd, you're on. Lloyd from Henrietta. How you doing, Lloyd?
All right, Joe. I'd listened to your dialogues there with the immigration thing.
I can see you disagree with me the way you're starting up.
No, I agree with you for the most part, except for one part, and that is everyone's arguing the wrong premise. You see, the news media in Washington, they control the dialogue that you guys are arguing.
That's correct. That is correct.
You see, they're saying, well, these guys don't pay taxes.
That's not true.
Okay, I'm saying that's a good thing. Why are we paying taxes?
Yeah! All right, Lloyd for president.
I mean, see, they don't think of but they've controlled the dialogue so that people think along that line.
That's right. You're absolutely correct.
They're thinking they need to be in as much slavery as we are.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And the same thing when you were speaking of the fact, they're going to take our welfare, or take the welfare. We're going to be supporting them. Well, one of the complaints that Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence was that King George was preventing the immigration and naturalization of foreigners to come to our country because they weren't wanting immigrants to come.
Right.
But, of course, in those days, they didn't have welfare.
Right.
And the only people that came, you had Norwegians, you had Swedes, you had Poles, you had Czechs. And a lot of these people went off to their own little communities, and they lived and didn't even speak English. But the only thing that they had to benefit by was by working hard and making a living in a country which you could do here, which they couldn't do in their other countries because most of the land and everything was owned by the oligarchs. But once you change the dialogue around, that if it's not an immigration problem, it's a welfare problem.
That's right.
And,
that's correct.
And the welfare problem is one of our tax problems.
Right.
And the real thing we should be arguing is, why are we having to pay the taxes?
Right. That's correct. Right on.
More power to the Mexicans that don't pay taxes. That's
okay, Lloyd. Hey, I agree 100%, and you're right on, Lloyd. Hold on a second.
What else, Lloyd?
Yeah.
You have anything else you want to say, Lloyd, before we go?
No, that's enough.
That's it? All right. Thank you very much for listening to 1170 KFAQ on Liberty Talk Radio. He has one. Oh, my wife is in the studio. She says, does he have a T-shirt? I said, of course he has a T-shirt. He's one of my man. He's my man. Lloyd, thank you very much. You take care. Thank you for calling in.
All righty.
Right. One other thing, what I heard last week, and the thing that really set me off on this whole thing is say, in this new immigration bill, we're going to insist that they speak English when they come here. I go, wait a minute. What happened to freedom? You mean the Swedes, when they came here, they spoke English? You mean my father? My father, after being here for 40 years, didn't speak English. And he had a company with 200 people. He talking like this. He's a slap of the face, He still didn't speak English. If they gave him a test, he couldn't pass it. And he paid taxes up to kazoo. He was a solid American. What do you mean you have to speak English? English is not... It's a free country. I can speak Swahili if I want.
There's counties all through the Midwest that speak German.
Yeah, I mean,
all the time.
I can't speak my language. What these homophobic crap idiots? I can't stand them. Unbelievable. To have to speak English. Oh, yeah, and they have to learn this and they have to learn that. What do you mean they have to learn? They don't have to learn anything. They come here. It's a free country. Free. You know what free is? F-R-E-E. Look it up in the dictionary. Not free, but you got to speak English first. It just drives me crazy. They got to speak English. You mean What if I pretended not to speak English anymore? I spoke only, but is Irish a term? Is Irish a language, honey? No. I spoke only Irish, all right? There's no language there. Don't get mad at me. But, and that's all I did. What, are you going to throw me out of the country? How stupid. It's dumb. And absolutely stupid. Hey, are we out of time already?
You got about 45 seconds, Joe.
45 seconds. Folks, thank you very much for listening to Liberty Talk Radio, me ranting on this immigration bill. If you have any questions about that or you want to make a comment, and it's obviously the end of the program, you can send me your comments to comments@libertytalkradio.com. I will answer each one of them. Be nice, though. Don't be nasty. Be nice. But send them to comments@libertytalkradio.com. I also would like to thank our sponsors, Ranch Acres Audiology, Jenks Health and Nutrition, McCool's Firearms, a home of L&L Machine Gun, Go Liberty Foods, and Freedom Gold Group. Please make an effort to look at their websites and do business with the people who do business with this program to ensure that our freedom is kept intact. And I want to thank you very much for listening in to Liberty Talk Radio, and good night, and I get to stay well and stay tuned.